They thought she was just another quiet farm mom, fragile, ordinary, someone they could ridicule, torment, and push around without consequence, but what they didn't know was that her daughter, forged in the fires of war and shadows of secret missions as a Delta Force operator, would return home just in time to make the bullies regret every single breath they wasted mocking her mother. What happened in that small forgotten town turned into a storm of justice, vengeance, and shocking revelations. Read till the end, and if you love stories where the underestimated rise and the tormentors fall, don't forget to subscribe for more. The quiet town of Willow Creek was the kind of place where time felt like it had stopped somewhere in the 1950s, where neighbors knew each other's business, gossip traveled faster than the wind, and grudges lasted generations, and in that town lived Mary, a widow who owned a small farm on the outskirts, a gentle woman with lines of hard work on her face, who wore humility like a second skin, whose days were spent tending to her cows, her chickens, her crops, and whose evenings were spent alone, sipping tea on her creaky porch, staring at the horizon with tired but patient eyes. Yet her quiet life drew the cruel attention of those who saw kindness as weakness. The bullies were not children but grown adults, bitter men and women who gathered in the local bar to laugh at Mary, spread rumors about her being poor, call her strange, and sometimes drive past her farm to shout insults, toss beer cans in her field, even spray graffiti on her barn, and while Mary endured it silently, never lashing out, never seeking revenge, their cruelty escalated when she stood her ground against a wealthy land developer who wanted her farm, and when she refused to sell, he and his cronies decided to break her spirit by harassment, mocking her in public, slashing her tires, even cornering her at the farmer's market until she trembled. But what nobody in town knew was that Mary had a daughter, Emily, who had been gone for years, serving her country in ways too secret for the papers, a Delta Force operator who had lived in deserts, jungles, and mountains, who had taken down warlords and dismantled terror cells, who had scars inside and out, yet whose deepest loyalty was not to flags or commanders but to the quiet mother who had raised her with love after her father's sudden death. Emily returned home unannounced one evening, stepping out of a truck in dusty boots, her eyes scanning the horizon the way a soldier scans a battlefield, and when she saw the slashed tires, the vandalized barn, and the faint sadness in her mother's smile, she felt something burn deep inside her, something she had once used to survive combat zones but had buried to protect her humanity, and Mary, surprised but overjoyed, hugged her daughter tightly, whispering that she didn't want trouble, that she just wanted peace. But Emily, hardened by years of missions where silence meant death, understood that peace sometimes had to be earned with a storm. She began to ask questions in the town, not with loud words but with the silent presence of someone who carried danger in her stance, and soon the bullies felt the shift. The same men who laughed at Mary suddenly found themselves unable to meet Emily's steady gaze, her piercing eyes that seemed to look through their souls. But the cruelest of them, Rick, the land developer, greedy and arrogant, mocked Emily in the bar, calling her just another farm girl pretending to be tough, not knowing that the woman standing in front of him had once taken down insurgents in the dead of night with nothing but a knife, not knowing that she had survived ambushes that would break 10 men. Emily didn't strike immediately. She watched, waited, letting their arrogance build, but when Rick's group escalated again by setting fire to Mary's hay barn one midnight, Emily's patience shattered, and that night Willow Creek saw something it would never forget. She tracked the culprits without a sound, moving through fields like a shadow, and by dawn every single one of them woke up tied to their trucks in the woods, stripped of their phones, their pride broken, their fear visible, because Emily had used her skills not to kill but to terrify, leaving marks of her training all around them. Knots only military knew, a precision of movement that whispered she could end them if she chose. The men ran back to town pale as ghosts, muttering about demons, and when people asked, they lied, but fear clung to them like sweat. Mary begged Emily not to go too far, not to ruin her future with vengeance, but Emily had already planned something bigger. Instead of just scaring them, she would expose them. She hacked into Rick's accounts, skills she had learned working alongside cyber specialists, and uncovered files of corruption, bribes to local officials, land stolen through threats, even connections to a trafficking ring in a neighboring state. And with ruthless precision, she planted the evidence where the sheriff, the media, and even the state police could find it, and overnight the mighty Rick fell, arrested in handcuffs while the town watched in stunned silence. Yet Emily wasn't finished, because she knew the other bullies would simply find new leaders unless they truly understood consequences, so she orchestrated moments that struck their egos. One man found his truck dismantled piece by piece and reassembled in the middle of Main Street like a child's toy. Another found photos of his secret affairs mailed to his wife. A woman who spread lies about Mary discovered her own embezzlement exposed to her boss. Each punishment was precise, surgical, like military strikes on enemy strongholds, except this time the battlefield was gossip, greed, and cowardice. But just as Emily thought the war was over, the biggest twist came. She discovered that Mary had never been as fragile as she seemed. Her mother had endured the torment not out of weakness but out of calculation, waiting for Emily's return, believing deep in her heart that the daughters she raised would come home when it mattered most. And when Emily confronted her about it, Mary simply smiled and said, "I raised you to fight for what's right. I knew the world would try to break me, but I also knew you'd never let it." That revelation shook Emily more than any battlefield, because she realized her mother's quiet strength was the very reason she had survived war. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same after that summer. People whispered of the night the bullies were broken, of the farm mom who stood tall again, of the soldier daughter who returned like a storm and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind justice and fear. Mary rebuilt her barn with the help of neighbors who suddenly remembered compassion, while Emily disappeared back into the shadows, her name never spoken officially but carried like a legend, a ghost that haunted bullies everywhere. And though she left, she visited her mother often in secret, each time making sure the farm was safe, each time reminding the town that quiet does not mean weak, and that behind every gentle face may stand a warrior ready to make tormentors regret. So the next time you see someone mocked, harassed, or underestimated, remember this: you don't know who might be watching, who might be coming back, who might be forged in fire to protect the ones they love. And if stories like this thrill you, shake you, and remind you of the hidden power in the quietest people, make sure you subscribe, because more tales of vengeance, justice, and shocking twists await you.